This cutie here is a young self-portrait of our next artist, J.M.W. Turner. Now, we often use his initials because he has a very long name, Joseph Mallard William Turner. Let's just call him Turner. Turner is very similar to Delacroix in that he believes color to be the catalyst for emotions. And when we look at his artwork, we're not going to see a lot of lines like Aang. Instead, it's about these intense, strong, bright contrasts of color. And this conflict of color is going to then lead us through the painting. Like what? This one here. This is your first painting by Joseph Mallard William Turner in this class. The title is long, so there's two versions of the title. The short version is titled The Slave Ship. To be more specifically, you can say the slave ship, slavers throwing overboard the dead and dying, typhoon coming on. What? Yeah. What Turner is depicting here is an event that happened in 1781. The incident is referred to as the Zong Massacre. The Zong Massacre is when an English slave ship that had its headquarters in Liverpool traveled to West Africa, took on its property, human beings, and traveled to Jamaica. Now, this journey across the Atlantic is always a challenge. It's extremely difficult. There are a lot of crazy storms on the Atlantic, aka hurricanes. And during this long, arduous journey, the captain of the slave ship feared a massive loss of income because there were many slaves that had been jam-packed into the hold of the ship. There had been many slaves that were sick and were dying. The captain was fearful, not for the human lives and their safety. He was fearful of losing an income of when he sold them at the slave market. To solve, or his solution to this problem, was a loophole in his insurance policy. His insurance policy said that he would be reimbursed only for lost property at sea. Therefore, he would only be reimbursed for slaves that had been lost at sea, not sick and dying from disease. So the captain ordered for 140 human beings that were sick and dying to be tossed overboard. This is the Zong Massacre. It happened in 1781, and it became an international news story. It also brought about a landmark case in London that ended English involvement with slave trade. It officially became the British Slave Trade Act of 1807. I tell you all of this context so that we can now look back at Turner's The Slave Ship, and we can see there is the ship headed to Jamaica, and here are the dead and the dying. It's a horrific nightmare. And that is exactly what Turner wants you to feel. Horrified, disgusted. It's sublime, isn't it? Unlike Constable's nostalgia of the English countryside, Turner is using Romanticism to be combative, loud, bold, turbulent. The insane act of the of the captain is then echoed by the fact that there is a typhoon coming on. Now, technically, it's a hurricane. I know. The title calls it a typhoon, but technically it's a hurricane. And we see the winds whipping up the ocean water in this froth and foam. We see the blazing white light of the sun in the horizon. Look at the colors. The colors help us understand the hot of that sun over the Atlantic and the equator, and then the icy cold, sharp winds and the rain and the storm frothing and brewing in the ocean as the ship sails away and leaves the victims to be destroyed by this hurricane. It's awful. The icy cold ocean, the hot burning sun, he uses color, like Delacroix. The slave ship is in the background. The closest thing to us, the viewer, are the dead and the dying. We see hands and feet with shackles on them. We see them reaching out and writhing with animals, creatures of the sea, who are also going to be tossed around in this hurricane. We see the chains. We see their hands outstretched. They are closest to us because they are the humanity we are supposed to connect with. We want to reach out and pull them to safety. The emotion here is one of appreciating life and seeing this human need to survive, even when all hope is lost. The dying are still reaching out for something to live, to survive, when all odds are stacked against them. It's a tough scene, but that's exactly what Turner wants you to feel, overwhelmed by this atrocity of humanity. It's Romanticism.